The first time I was in love, in real love, we had this intense hunger to know each other. We would talk and talk and talk just to exhaust every thought and word every day and into the night. It was like we were trying to invent for ourselves a single grammar and syntax, overwhelm each other with a perfect language, a language that we could hold just between ourselves. Nothing was insufferable. Everything was interesting. And of course, it couldn't last forever. I had just turned 19 years old. But I remember we had these brownies that her friend had made for her birthday. And after we ate them, it seemed to take quite a while for them to kick in. So we went on a walk down the museum to look around and hope something might kick into high gear. We sat down inside the big dark room where they were playing Bruce Conner's 1976 film Crossroads on a loop. It's about a half hour of footage of the nuclear bomb exploding on Bikini Atoll, set to a throbbing ambient score. Of course, this is when the drugs set in. We were holding hands, gripped by the terror of atomic power and romance, looking into each other's eyes and then back into the mushroom cloud. Not a word spoken between us. It was maybe the most beautiful she ever looked to me, illuminated by the light of the bomb. We sat there until they kicked us out at closing, and we fell asleep back at her place, still high and silent. One afternoon, we sprawled out on her bed, and she read to me from her diary she had kept from back when she was a teenager. It was sweet and embarrassing and vulnerable in a manner I'd never quite experienced before with someone. It was like being naked in a way that I was very eager to reciprocate. One weekend, I rooted around in the closet of my childhood bedroom to find a novel that I'd written when I was 16 after a youthful preoccupation with Cormac McCarthy. Imagine a mashup of All the Pretty Horses and Blood Meridian through a fog of teenage angst and hormones. I had scrawled it in 6 of those black and white speckled composition notebooks that the nuns at parochial school handed out in fistfuls. I had tried to bind it together like signatures in a folio by taping their ends together along the spine. The pages recorded an incredible orgy of sex and violence in a barely legible hand, which nonetheless formed an index of my teenage pseudo-literary aspirations. It was almost a diary, and I knew it would entertain her. But I remember going to her place on the bus, my arms full of groceries, the volumes of my juvenilia tucked under my arm, and by some misfortune I left it behind. When I walked up the stairs, I realized that I had laid it on the seat beside me and forgot it when I got off. My lurid manuscript was gone forever, and I never could match her disclosure. In the intervening years after we broke up, I sometimes hooked up with a bartender at a place I hung out at after work. She projected her attraction to me out of a presidium of deep contempt, which for me was exhilarating. It can be so flattering to have someone who hates you still want to have you around. Sometimes this can even pass for romance. Once, though, she pressed my cheeks between her palms and looked deep into my eyes and said, "You are so beautiful." This was probably one of the only nice things that we had ever said between us, and she never said anything like it again. But the way she said it, I could tell that she believed it, at least in that particular moment. For my part, I didn't know what to say or do. I was trying to explain to my last ex why I quit making music, or rather explain why I couldn't muster the feeling. I couldn't quite find the means to explain how different I was then, only a few years ago, how deranged I was in writing songs and playing music. That period of creative industrialist derangement had elapsed, In retrospect, it's like describing the memories of a different person. When I got my life together, I left a land of sonic forms behind. But it was hard to find a way to illustrate the difference between the person I am now and the person I was then. So I sent her some songs to show her, dragging the files from my computer. I didn't think much about it, just that maybe she could hear it in my voice. She told me they made her profoundly sad, that they made her cry, and she couldn't listen for more than a few seconds to each. I pulled a song up to see if I could hear the same thing she was hearing, the thing that made her so sad. And of course it was singing in another person's voice, a stranger's. There was one song that started out as a synopsis of the Italian B-movie Planet of the Vampires, before transitioning to an anecdote about buying human teeth. The refrain was written under the influence of Bill Cooper's paranoiac radio program, The Hour of the Time, where he preached a vituperative sermon against the sacred conspiracy of the elite, Mystery Babylon. The lyrics went something like this. How much for a pair of teeth? The cost might catch you by surprise. Babylon, Babylon, Mystery Babylon. And I had to admit, it wasn't exactly written in the language of the heart.